we got to the bait banks about 7:15, and we'd made 50, 60 baits by 7:30, 7:40, 7:30, 7:35, and got to my first spot about maybe 8:20 or so, and by 9 o'clock we had our snappers and were looking for something else to do. Tried to look for kings today, and we hooked at least 5, maybe 6. They managed to pull the hooks on all those. We didn't catch any, but the big surprise for this year so far has been the sheer numbers of kings. I don't know if any of y'all have tried to catch them or not, but in the last year I caught a total of 11 king mackerel, and I caught 5 one day. And I've already had at least 3 days this year I caught 6. So it has been a good king mackerel year so far. I've caught more king mackerel this year than I have at least in the last 3 years combined, and maybe as many as I did in the last 4 years. So that's been a nice surprise.
A lot of grass.
What?
A lot of grass out there.
A lot of dead grass. I found live grass about a week ago. Found a really nice line down almost around Sandestin, running north and south, and it was covered up in mahi. But I went through 2 little lines before I got there, and the first 2 I went through, they were pretty dead. It was real dark brown, and when I got to that 3rd one, it was just really bright, new, lively grass. So, but yeah, a lot of grass just been so rough, it's all broken up everywhere. We'll get started here in just a second. Trying to give everybody a little bit of time to get here. I don't know about how when y'all came through, but I know for us the traffic coming off of 98 to here was horrific. Took us maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes to get from 98 to here. So.
Does that snapper count towards your aggregate?
If you keep it, yes. Yeah, if you even if it's bit in half, and I think technically the half has to be 16 inches, even though it's obvious that the fish was bigger at one point.
I'd take that one and more. I'd take that one.
And I'm not, and don't hold me to that, but that's just what I've kind of been told and heard. So, well, I haven't seen anybody come in a minute, so I guess we'll get started. So we got 2 little issues tonight. Normally we have handouts and cards. UPS kind of nailed us on that one. They were supposed to be here today. They shipped them from the warehouse in Panama City, and UPS didn't show up today. And Captain Mark, who's normally with me, he's got boat issues and trying to get his boat fixed for tomorrow because he has a charter and doesn't know if he can get it running or not, but he's still working on it as we speak. But anyway, tarpon fishing. This is an amazing fishery that we have that very few people take advantage of. And I'm telling you, I'm going to show some video here in just a minute. I'll put our tarpon fishery up against pretty much anybody. And I'm talking Boca Grande, I'm talking the Keys. We have a tarpon fishery that rivals anybody's.
In Central America, it's better than anywhere else.
Yeah. And now the one thing I will say about the Keys and tarpon, if you haven't ever been to the Keys and you get a chance to go down there, it's a touristy gimmick thing. If you haven't been, you need to stop at Robbie's in Isla Morada one time. You go to Robbie's and they have basically pet tarpon. They've been hand feeding these tarpon for years and years and years, probably going on at least 30 and more, maybe 40 years. And it used to be just a little bitty marina and a dock. You go down there and you pay $10 for a bucket of minnows, and you go out on the dock and you can literally kneel down on the dock, and there's tarpon down there that are 60 to 200 pounds, and there's hundreds, if not 1,000 of these tarpon. Now, if you ever take your buddy down there, You know, you can see all the tarpon. You're on the dock, you can see all these tarpon out there just milling around. And as soon as you get your minnow and start to put your hand down towards the water, the tarpon are coming, they're just running to you. And they're gonna come up there, and just as they start to put their mouth out of the water, you let go of the minnow and they'll take it, basically take it out of your hand. But you get your buddy to hold the minnow down there, and he'll see all these other tarpon. Well, there's tarpon under the dock. And they come from under the dock, and you don't know it. And when they don't just eat the minnow, they eat it and they have you up to here. Look up, go on YouTube and type in tarpon at Robbie's. And a 200-pound tarpon's got you, and he's just, they don't have teeth, and they can't physically hurt you, but it's like sandpaper when it comes down your arm. It'll just it looks like somebody took 40 grit paper and just did like this. But the tarpon at Robbie's, they got all these little craft booths. It looks like you've been to the Mullet Festival when you're walking around the docks. But it's something I wouldn't do it a bunch of times, but you need to go to Robbie's at least once. You know, we're right here on the cusp of tarpon season. You know, tarpon season can start as early as late May, and sometimes it's mid-June before they really start to bite. And I know a couple of the guys that I know that really specialize in the tarpon thing. They've been going, they have been seeing some fish right now, but they really haven't started to bite. And you can know when the tarpon will really start to bite. You can go out to the Okaloosa Pier, and we have a great pier tournament for tarpon. But there's, just like in the past, there's cigar minnows and herring and threadfins and hardtails. But and we don't catch a lot of them around the pass. We get them better at the pier, but there's a little bait fish called an LY. Well, when the water temperature gets just right, those LYs at the pier will start to die. And they're doing this little twirly motion. And they'll be on the bottom, and he starts to die, and he goes all the way to the top. When the LYs start to die, that's when the tarpon will start to bite, and that's when the tiger sharks start to bite. You'll see tigers going down the sandbar just going bloop, 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 just eating them like crazy. And we'll catch them all the way into August normally. The peak time, mid-June to late July. There's about a 6 or 8 week period when that's when we're really going to catch them. And we're going to see schools of anywhere from 3 or 4 fish, and as many days. A lot of times we'll see schools that number into the thousands of tarpon, at least into the hundreds for certain. There are a couple key things with tarpon. One is, if you don't have a trolling motor, you're going to need a breakaway anchor system. And what I mean by a breakaway anchor system, if you have those motors or that motor running, the likelihood of you getting a tarpon bite is pretty slim. They're smarter than that. So, but Okaloosa and Walton County have done us a bunch of huge favors. They built all these snorkel reefs all down the beach. And if you don't know where they are, you can go on the Okaloosa website, and they have all the numbers, and then the Walton County website has theirs, to all these snorkel reefs. And you can go down and anchor up on these snorkel reefs because they're right on the line where the tarpon move down the beach. They're just off the sandbar, kind of like where the end of the pier would be. And these snorkel and kayak reefs, between Dustin and Inlet Beach, I think there's 9. But you can go there and just pretty much anchor up, and the tarpon are going to come by where you're at some point during the day. But when you hook one, that tarpon you have hooked, he's going to want to go with his buddies. And pretty much, you get one of those nice little respectable 60 to 80 pound tarpon, well, you can deal with him. But a lot of these tarpon are going to be well over 100 pounds. Well, the 100 pounder, he's going with his buddies. So you need to be able to come off anchor real quick, but not lose your anchor. So what is a breakaway anchor system? All you got to do is have a big old poly ball hooked to your anchor rope. So when you get a tarpon bite, you just go up and uncleat it, throw it over, go catch your tarpon, and come back and get your anchor. And just let the poly ball sit down there on the beach. So that's a huge key. Other thing, once you see the tarpon, in a minute I'm going to show you some videos. If you chase the tarpon school, you won't get a bite hardly. You see the tarpon school, if you don't get a bite when they go past you, we need to circle up the beach, quarter to a half a mile, get well up in front of them on the same line that they're going on, and reset up. And make sure that you let the tarpon come to you. That's a huge key. Fighting a tarpon. This would apply to any fish really with a spinning rod, but when you go to pull against a tarpon or a bigger species on a spinning rod, if you put pressure towards the fish's tail, the tarpon wants to go this way. Well, if you're pulling sideways to him, that's just going to make him mad. He's going to fight you back with everything he has. But if he's trying to go around the boat and do different things and stay with his buddies, you can make any fish. This applies to any fish, not just a tarpon. But when you put pressure, if this is the tarpon's nose and this is his tail, if you pull down his body, he's going to turn this way. And then when he gets too far this way, well, there again, you pull back against him and come this way. And you can just basically walk that fish to you. Works great for big tunas on spinning rods, works for big mahis, works for big kings. Of course, how we tarpon fish. And then the last one that's of huge importance, we got to put our bait where the tarpon finds the bait. And this would apply if we were going out in the bay and fishing for redfish or trout. If you're fishing on the flats for redfish and trout and you see the redfish going like this, and you throw way up here in front of him and bring the bait to him, the likelihood of getting a lot of bites is not very good. The same way with the tarpon. You throw it out in front of the tarpon and you bring it to him, that's unnatural. In nature, bait fish do not swim at predator fish, they run away. So we want the tarpon here where he's coming by us so we can throw over here and work the bait this way so the tarpon comes to the bait. That way he doesn't get freaked out about it. That's natural. That bait should go away from him. So that's your fourth key. And I have no idea how loud this is going to be. So this school only has maybe 100 in it. But these guys put on an aerial show second to nothing. And this is when they're going down the beach, and you can, if you have a tower, there are a lot of you to see, but they're going to be coming by gulping air, just like these are. They're going to come by, and you'll see them just rolling down the beach. When they're doing this little mode right here, I think they're in spawning mode when they're doing this little circle thing. These tarpon I don't know that I've ever caught one when they're doing the little circle things. When they're swimming and on a move, you catch them. But when they're doing that little circly thing, I haven't had very good success with them. And the beach is literally right there. You'll see it in a second, I think. So you can see where the beach is, like right here, and that's your second sandbar. These fish are all the way up in the trough. I don't know how many's in that school, but I'm telling you, there's at least 500. So it's not like we're out here. When we go cove, even when cobia fishing was good, I mean, if you saw a school of 20 cobias, that was a lot. But most of the time you saw 1s, 2s, and 3s. This is not an uncommon uncommon sight to see tarpon fishing, where there are literally hundreds, if not 1,000 in a school. But if that one little video of the tarpon jumping doesn't get you excited about tarpon fishing, I don't know what will, because that means they put on a heck of a show. Now, once we catch a tarpon, everybody wants a photo. This is the correct way to get a photo with your tarpon. You can take this photo, pull him up beside the boat, reach down, unhook him, swim him along, take all the pictures you want, release that tarpon unharmed, post all the stuff you want on Facebook, any social media. This photo you posted on social media, and I won't be surprised if the FWC shows up knocking on your door, because this is illegal. More than 50% of the tarpon must be in the water and supported by the water. This tarpon will not survive. So this will get you in trouble. If you post that picture, your FWC is going to show up at your house. Now, can you kill it? The next question is, can you kill a tarpon? Absolutely. But you have to buy a special tarpon tag, and you have to have a reasonable idea that your tarpon is going to break some sort of record. Even though you have a tarpon tag, that doesn't allow you to just go kill a random 50-pound tarpon. There's several taxidermy places, Gray's and Sailfish Mounts, and these guys, if you have good pictures of your tarpon, they have a mold for almost every, you can pull him up beside the boat, get length, girth, take a bunch of pictures, send it down to King Sailfish Mounts. 3 or 4 weeks later, you'll have a tarpon mount back that has all the scars that your tarpon had. They're really, really good about airbrushing from your photos. And most all mounts anymore, they're all fiberglass. They last forever. They can be touched up later if they fade out over time. And you do a real fish mount, and a real fish mount's only good, even with a really good taxidermist, probably around somewhere in that 15 to 20 year mark, you'll be able to walk up and touch that mount that's on your wall and your finger will go right through it. Nice fiberglass mount lasts forever. This is just more things about, here's the boat, here's the tarpon. If you throw your bait over here and bring it this way, you're not going to get that tarpon bite. You need to have spotted these fish when they're here, so you can throw out this way and bring your bait across like that. That's what's going to entice the tarpon to actually bite. These are real shallow. You can tell that the beach is going to be right here because these fish are up on that first little sandbar. They're not even 100 yards from the beach. There's another good example how close to the beach they will. Normally we're out a little deeper. We're on the outside of the big sandbar, but they will come all the way up in the trough. And then earlier I was telling you about the snorkel reefs. They're all kind of named. There's dolphin, turtle, cobia, Air Force jet, and they're all laid out in the pattern of what they're named after. But these are all up and down the beach. The first set is Henderson Beach has a set of them, but at Henderson they're just kind of laid out in like a square or maybe a rectangle. But once you go past Henderson, the rest of them are all named after some little species and laid out in this format. These are also, a lot of times when we're just going to go snapper fishing, we get out to the pass and maybe it's a full moon or maybe the tides have flipped after a moon and we got all that nasty water out there by the pass in the morning and bait's really hard to catch. A lot of times I can run and hit these little snorkel reefs and get all my bait, whether I'm snapper, grouper, amberjack fishing, these are really good places to go catch bait at also. And if you're maybe fishing way down on the East Beach and you run out of bait and you need to go get more, well, if you're on the East Beach, you may be 30 miles from Destin, but you're only 10 miles from the beach if you're fishing in state waters. It's not too bad to run up there on the beach and have these little snorkel reefs down there, because there's one at like Ed Walleye Park and all them different places. Yes, sir.
How far off the beach do we have to be? I was cobia fishing and the sheriff's department approached me and told me I had to be 750 feet from the beach. And I was off the third sandbar. And of course, I'm in my boat. And to me, it looked like I was probably maybe 500 feet off the beach. But what is the rules? And this appears to me to be within 750 feet.
So the question was, how far off the beach do you have to be? And I would call the FWC and get an affirmative answer and not go on my opinion. What I understand it to be is 300 feet. It's the same rules they have at the pier. They have big signs on the pier that when you get down to the pier, you got to be at least 300 feet away from the pier. And that's what I've always thought it was.
Yeah, that was Oklahoma County Sheriff's Department.
Yeah. But I would, don't go on my opinion on that. Call the FWC, get them to email it to you, so you have a copy of something to show. There again, this picture is pretty old, and I don't know that this rule was in effect when they took that one, but that's another picture of a tarpon that would get you in trouble today. But we can catch tarpon from a boat, we can catch them from a kayak. This is a true catch. This actually happened. This was probably 10 years ago here in town, but there's boats that actually watched this guy catch this tarpon. But paddle boarding for them, kayaking, boat fishing, and most of those pictures some of those videos I was showing, were showing the tarpon all up in here. Generally speaking, we're going to catch them out here, and those snorkel reefs are on the outside of this sandbar. They're not inside the sandbar. The snorkel reefs, I believe, are 1,500 feet off the beach. I think they're 500 yards. Not sure about that, but I know that it's out here in a little deeper water. They're offshore.
What's the depth?
Maybe 15, 18 feet. I mean, you can definitely on a nice day like this, when you drive up on them, you can see them all. It's like, there they are. No problem to see them. We talked about a troll. This is the optimum thing. You can motor up to tarpon if you have a trolling motor. The trolling motor's quiet enough, it doesn't really spook them too bad. You don't want to get overly close to them, you need to be 100 yards from them. But if you're 100 yards from them, you can be running the trolling motor. And the trolling motor allows you to actually go down the beach and physically look for the tarpon. You don't have to just sit there and anchor up and wait for them to come to you. As far as tackle, I think you need something. I put on here an 8-foot rod, but 7 to 9 foot heavy action spinning rod. You need something that can deal with a fish that weighs in excess of 80 pounds and up to a couple hundred. This is one of my little rigs. It's 7 foot. This is plenty long. What's nicer about a little bit longer rod is you do get more casting distance out of an 8-foot rod than you will a 7. And then generally for me, if a rod that starts to get more than 8 foot on a boat, man, there's the T-top or the tower or outriggers, and it's very hard to move around the boat with a rod that's too long. So for me, I probably would I would rather have a 7 foot than a 9 foot. Because I think I'm okay at casting, so it doesn't really bother me that much. Normally my spinning rods are spooled with 50 or 65 pound braid, because I use these for multitask fishing. If I was setting up just for tarpon, if I had a rig that I was going to say, This is my tarpon rig, and that's what I'm gonna use it for. It would probably be spooled with like 30-pound braid. 30-pound is plenty big to catch these fish, but it's so much more castable than this 50 or 60 like is on this one. And then between the braid and the leader, we need some shock absorption here. So 20 to 30 foot of fluorocarbon leader, a top shot of that's used in, learn to tie an FG knot. If you don't know how to tie an FG knot, go on YouTube and look up reverse FG. The FG knot will go through your guide so easy. When you go to cast, you won't even know it goes through there. So the connection here between your braid and your top shot is an FG knot, and then 2 to 3 foot of 40 to 60 pound fluorocarbon, and then I use a 7/0 Owner Mutu light hook. It's the same hook I would use if I was blackfin fishing on the knuckle in the fall. It's the same hook I use for snapper fishing. Half the time it's what I use for groupers and jacks. This is my go-to hook. It's lightweight, but very strong. You can catch a really big fish on an Owner Mutu light hook. These are spring wire, chemically sharpened, and black nickel Teflon coated. So they have extreme resilience to bending, being that they're spring wire. The Teflon coating makes it slide into a fish's mouth really easy, and they're chemically sharpened, so when you take it out of the package, it's ready to go. And a typical FG is a somewhat complicated knot to tie, because you got most of the videos you see on an FG, a regular FG, they've taken it and they got it wrapped around their little finger and around this button, and there's a piece in your teeth. It just takes forever. And hopefully I can do this in here where I can't see very well. I hate the light. I love Legendary, but I hate the lighting in here. I can't see nothing. But this is how long it should take you to tie an FG. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 wraps, 10 on each side. Now, we're going to take the tag in. And do a half hitch around the main line and the braid. At this point, you need to set the FG. So if you were standing up here, you'd be able to see this, and it's all light blue. And as I pull this, the FG turns to a dark blue color. So I've got 1/2 inch around the 2 main lines. Now I'm going to do that one more time. Then I take the little tag in, do a 1/2 inch, 1, 2 1/2 inches just around the braid. And then I do a 3-turn 1/2 inch to finish it. And at that point, you can trim your 2 tag ends. I'll go right through your guide. But I'm sitting here doing it while I'm talking. It took me definitely less than 2 minutes. When I'm sitting there in my garage doing it, not trying to show someone how to do it, I can do that in less than a minute. But that is literally the strongest connection that will just fly through the guides. And then, so we will, at that point, we'll have our 20 to 30 feet of 30-pound mono. And then we're going to use an Albright knot to attach our 40 to 60 pound to this 30.
Wait, you want mono on it or floral?
Fluoro. And then we're going to snell the treble hook. If you don't know how, or no, I said treble hook, but I meant circle hook. And if you don't know how to snell, there again, go on YouTube. Or for any of these knots, come by the shop. All the guys at the shop are very proficient. We can teach you any of those in just a matter of a few minutes.
Is there a link that you got to have on that on your last piece if you're trying to get a record? What?
So the gentleman asked, is there a length on your last piece?
Yeah.
The length is on if you're trying to catch a record fish for IGFA, from the FG knot to the hook cannot exceed 25 total feet. That's top shot and leader.
Okay, what about weight? But down on your, what do you call that last short?
The last little short piece of leader, there's none here. It's just the overall can't be more than 25 feet.
Okay.
Question.
Yes.
So, what's the benefit of the extra 3 feet, the last part of your leader, versus just tying it directly to the 20 to 30 foot?
You need more abrade. The reason the gentleman asked, why do we need this last piece? If you had a smaller tarpon, you might catch him on 30 pound, but their mouth is so raspy. If you fight the fish for long enough, he's going to wear through it and break off.
So you're just after that extra heavier line.
Yep, just needs to be thicker diameter, but not so thick that it detracts from the action of your bait. I wouldn't make it out of 100.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Fly fishing, you call it a bite tip.
Yeah.
So, is there a maximum weight that you can have if you're IGFA fishing?
No.
Doesn't matter on the bite tip.
Nope.
And what's our preferred bait?
We'll get there in just a minute. Yes, sir.
Is there a reason you can't just do like a 25-foot piece of 60-pound fluoro to bring FG to the braid?
Doesn't cast very well. Could you? Yes. You're just going to greatly hurt your casting distance. We talked about this a little bit already. You need a reel that's going to hold at least 300 yards of whatever braid you're going to use, and something that has, a fair amount of power to it. You try to do these tarpon on and I'm going to use Penn as an example, but Penn makes some really good reels, but their little Fierce reel that sells for $69, the gears in that little reel are not going to hold up. You need something, in Penn it would be like a Penn 750 or a Penn Battle, and the Shimano's like I have here, it's going to be the Spiros or a Saragossa or a Twin Power, something that can stand up to these size fish that we're catching. We talked about braid, leader, top shot hooks. That's all we talked about. Oh, if you don't, you need these on your boat no matter what. But this is especially helpful tarpon fishing because this is a battle that's going to last for 30 to 40 minutes, maybe even more than an hour. You'll drill a little hole into your leg here, but we use these on every trip we go on, whether it's snappers, amberjacks, groupers, tarpon. If you don't have the little rod knobs, a regular fighting belt is just a piece of garbage unless you've got the whole fighting system. This is the only way to go. It slides on and off your rod. You need several stuck around the boat no matter what kind of fishing you're doing. Oh, we don't really have to. As far as baits go, There is, and this pretty much I think goes for almost everything I fish for. If I have a live well full of live herring, we're going to catch fish today. I don't know what we're going to catch. It may not be the species that we left the past to go target, but if I've got herring, we're catching fish. They're the best bait. And one of the reasons that I think herring are so good is when you hook one on and you throw it out there and they hit the water, their scales go, and it's just like little pieces of iridescence. And it will call fish from a long way away from the boat, unlike a cigar minnow who has, they got the little teeny scales that stick on your hand and stick on your foregrip or your rod and everywhere else. But when herring hits the water, his scales just kind of go everywhere. And they look iridescent in the water. And they're livelier than a cigar minnow. I have no idea if they taste better. Has anybody ever tried? No? But herring are my best. Cigar minnows are next. This is the little fish from the pier. Looks very much like a herring. They're in the same family, but you know our herring are kind of long and slender. These little LYs, actually you should probably have that one in front of cigar minnows as the favored bait. But when these little guys start dying at the pier, that's when the tarpon are going to bite. The difference is this big belly on them. But they do the same thing. When you hook one on and you throw it out there behind the boat, the scales just go. Everybody good? Not going too fast? Yes, sir.
Is that like similar to like a pogey?
So the question was it similar? Is it similar to a pogey? So there's East Coast pogies, and the answer to that would be no. But we have another bait in the bay called a menhaden, which a lot of people call them pogies, and a lot of people call them LYs, which they're really not. They're truly menhaden. And menhaden would be a pretty good tarpon option, but they are different from the pogies on the East Coast. So, this is one of the simpler seminars that we do. Tarpon fishing's not complicated. Tarpon fishing is about stealth and presentation. Yes, sir.
On presentation, do you have a preference whether to hook them through the eyes or up through the lip?
So if you want your bait to be alive, it needs to be hooked through the eyes or just in front of the eyes. There's a little hard spot there. If you hook your bait from the bottom jaw and out through the top of his nose, he's going to die much, much faster. So here's a good analogy for you. When you do that, you've closed his mouth. He has to have water going through his gills to breathe. So you do this to yourself and see how long before you pass out. That's what you've done when you took a live bait of any kind and hooked him this way and not through the eye sockets. He's just not going to live very long. And that doesn't matter if we're tarpon fishing, snapper, groupers, amberjacks, king mackerel, doesn't matter. Live bait needs to be hooked right here. Now, I'm assuming that everybody has a boat. Maybe everybody doesn't have a boat. We catch a lot of tarpon from the pier. Our pier has a tarpon tournament every year, and there's one guy that fishes out there a bunch. His name is Jason, and I think he's won the tarpon tournament at least 3, maybe 4 or 5 times. At the pier tarpon tournament, they have to get the tarpon, catch the tarpon, get him up beside the pier, and the tarpon is there, and you got to take a photo of him that's time stamped, time and date stamped, and that's how you get an entry. And the pier tarpon tournament is about most tarpon caught during this period. Now, at the pier, they don't catch nearly as many on live baits at the pier as they catch on lures. These big paddle tail baits, they just smash them at the pier. But I have not. I've had reasonable success on the big paddle tails from the boat, but I think it has some. If you're in a boat that has a tower, I think it's much better with the lure because you're able to present it better. But when you're throwing off a flat deck on a boat that doesn't have a tower, you're more pulling the lure through the water, and the paddle tails don't work as good as they do at the pier or from a tower. They will catch fish. And like I say, most of the fish at the pier are caught on this type of lure. And there, Berkeley makes some, Tsunami, these are the Pro Tails, Live Target. There's 5 or 6 different brands. We have them all on one end cap. Oh, NLBL lures. We have a whole end cap of just tarpon soft baits at the shop.
How do they release it from the pier?
So at the pier, once you get your picture, you just kind of pick the tarpon's head up and snap it one time. Just go boop, and the line will pop like that, and that lure just falls right out of his mouth, and tarpon's ready to go. This is a lure that will work. I wouldn't use this at the pier because of the treble hooks in it, but it is a lure. It's the Yozuri twitch bait. It's about a 5-inch twitch bait. This is a lure that is really good. If I was going to tarpon fish with this, I would probably switch the treble hooks out to single hooks because we are going to need to release those fish. It does come rigged with treble hooks, but it's a great lure for a lot of other species, and it's something that you should have in your arsenal. You can cast this around schooling fish, grass lines, buoys, cobias, king mackerel, blackfin tunas, mahis, throwing it out around the fads. And at nighttime, if you ever go to the rigs, this iridescent green one, if you're out there at the rigs and tuna fishing at night, you can pretty much take this and pitch it up there by the rig and just almost let it, if the current's running enough to keep it up in the water, you can just pitch it at the rig, take the rod and stick it in a rod holder. If the current's running, it'll sit there and do like this. And all of a sudden you see this just explosion and a yellowfin just nailed it. They're great for a lot of other species, but is a good tarpon option. Now, if we're going to actually catch a tarpon, there's a couple keys here. When you first hook the tarpon on a circle hook, we're going to let him have the bait. We're just going to come tight on him and just start to pull a little bit. We start to put pressure on him, he's going to start to run and just run, jump, run, jump, run, jump, run, jump. Just stand there, let him go. If he's going too fast, that's why I say you need a breakaway anchor. He may be going to take all the line if he's one of the big ones. Undo the anchor, start going with him because he's going to want to go with his buddies. And it's just a normal battle for the first 2/3 of the fight. The last third of the fight, or really maybe even less than that, somewhere between here and less than across the room, we're going to get to this point where the tarpon is very close. And that tarpon he's going to come up and you're going to feel him. You're going to be fighting him, and all of a sudden the line starts to do something different. And he's doing this, and the tarpon is coming to the top. When he comes and gets to the surface, he's going to jump. At that point, we need to have the rod tip up here. And when that tarpon, when you feel him coming, he's coming, surface, and just as he starts to jump, we don't want to throw slack into the line because you've already been battling this fish for an hour. There may be a pretty big hole wallered out where that hook is. So we want to keep tension, but as he starts to jump, we call it bowing to the tarpon. We're going to take the rod tip and just follow him while he jumps. Get the rod pointed directly at the fish, let him jump, and keep tension on the line. When you have a rod pointed this way and you pull drag, let's just say you have 10 pounds of drag in a straight pull. When you have the rod bent, now that drag's been increased to probably 16, 17, or 18 pounds of drag. So by bowing to the tarpon, we're taking some of the drag off, but still keeping tension, and we let the tarpon do his thing. And these are out of proportion. They are not out of proportion, but out of sequence. This should have been first. The tarpon is right here, he's coming along, and this is about the time you need to bow to the tarpon. He's coming along and he's about to jump out of the water. At this point, if you're still holding full tension on that tarpon, and he does that, most likely you don't have a tarpon anymore. He just got away. You either pulled the hook or broke him off. So this bowing to the tarpon, as we call it, and you can come up with your own term for that, it's very important to be able to take some of the pressure off when that tarpon starts to jump, because at this point, if you haven't relieved some of that tension and getting that rod pointed at the tarpon, he's long gone. And all the work you did to get the bite, or find the fish, catch the bait, find the fish, get the bite, did battle for an hour, and now we lost him right here beside the boat because we didn't do the last couple things correctly. Oh, you were asking about menhaden. That's the true menhaden in the bay. And they are different speed. They're real close to an East Coast bunker, but they're not. Bunker and or pogie. And if anybody doesn't know, that's a threadfin herring. That would be another quite viable option for tarpon bait. Yes?
You find that herring play well with others in the live well, or do they need to be separate from the other species in the live well?
So the question was, do herring get along with other species in the live well? They are a more delicate bait. So long as the live well is not overcrowded. The boat I was on today, we probably had a 35-gallon live well. I had at least 36 herring, 36 cigar minnows, and probably a dozen hardtails, and they had more than ample room to move around. You start getting in that more than 100 baits, you know, if your live well is this deep, like that, 60, 70 baits, you're good. Yes?
Tim, we've coasted down the outside of the second sandbar. You're looking for your tarpon. You see him. You have decided to cast to the fish. You don't cast to the lead fish. You cast on the egg on. You don't ever turn around and throw a pitch of bait out and then work control away from him. Only.
So the question was, could you put a bait out and kind of troll away from the tarpon? If you have a trolling motor, yes. If you're using your big motor, no. You'll spook them.
Yeah.
You're much better off to go way up in front, go a quarter mile down the beach, set up and let them come to you.
And are you always casting past them, bringing it back, or do you ever let a bait sit out and just let them swim until they come to it? Or
So generally, if I'm set up, if I'm on a boat where I'm set up on like one of the question was, do you ever just throw baits out and wait for them? And the answer is yes. If I'm set up on one of those snorkel reefs and I don't have a trolling motor and I'm at anchor, I will definitely put out at least one or two live baits. And generally speaking, I'll put one of those out and just let it just free roam. And I'll put one on a balloon rig where he's can't get down more than 2 or 3 feet below the surface. Balloon fishing can be very effective for tarpon. Also, if you're at anchor for the tarpon like that on the snorkel reefs, one of the things they do down in the Keys that is very effective with tarpon is chumming. And tarpon are very good about being attracted to chum. And they call it trash. I don't know anywhere around here you can really buy trash, but what trash is in the Keys is they have all the shrimp boats down there, and in the mornings you go to the shrimp boats, they can't sell you shrimp, that's actually illegal, but they can sell you their trash. And they whatever they caught while they were shrimping, and they sell it to you in like little 5-gallon mesh baggy things, and it's real cheap. But if you have old fish carcasses, scraps, cut them up into little pieces, you know, shrimp heads, anything like that, any kind of chum, tarpon can be very attracted to chum. And if we had a place to get trash, what they call trash around here, the shrimp boat cull, that would be awesome. But I've never seen any of the local shrimp boats that, our tarpon season here is only 10 weeks or so, 10, 12 weeks at best. And it's really, that's not quite enough for them to get set up to selling chum for. And they catch tarpon pretty much year round in the Keys, and I think that's why you see the shrimp boats selling their trash. What else? Everybody's an expert. We can all go tarpon fishing tomorrow and go get them. Yes?
Jeremiah's lake coming in, what size leader material?
For your actual leader, somewhere between 40 and 60 pound, and then your little top shot in between there, somewhere between around 30 pound. So you have a little bit of stretch.
Are they in the bay at all?
So the question was, are the tarpon in the bay? For our traditional microphone fell off. For what we think of as traditional tarpon fishing, our bay is not very conducive for that because our water is so tannic and stuff. And they're not really all the fish on the outside, they're actually migrating. They're all going to Louisiana to spawn. The tarpon that are in the bay are more resident fish. And so we do have tarpon. You'll see them around the Mid-Bay Bridge. And then the little shipwreck on the north side of the bay, back up on Choctaw Beach, I've seen the tarpon there, and a little bit around 331. They're not as predictable as to when they'll be there, what they'll eat, those kind of things. We definitely do have tarpon in the bay. So can you go target them? Yes. I don't know anyone that does it on a regular enough basis that I could sit here and go, you need to go hit this time of day, use this rig, and that kind of thing. I mean, I probably hooked, and I fished here my whole life, and I probably hooked a dozen in the bay in 62 years. But now I've never really gone out and spent any time at it either. But we do have some tarpon in the bay.
You said they're migrating. Are they migrating this time of year, or during this 10-week period? Are they migrating east to west?
East to west, just like the cobia would. Yeah. You will occasionally see a wrong way school. Just keep on going. Don't mess with those wrong way fish. They almost don't bite. And we do see schools going the wrong way. But I wouldn't even, I've thrown at so many of them, I'm just like, no, just keep on. Let's go find another one. Yes?
Is there a time of year that they migrate back that you could try to target them, or do they move on?
I think I've never seen them come back in the fall. I think they go, like when we used to have a cobia run, they come down the beach in the springtime, and in the fall they go back offshore. And I think the tarpon are the same thing. They go back offshore. Yeah.
How fast is the battle once you spawn them?
Ask me that again.
How fast does everything happen whenever you spawn on the beach? Do you have a minute to get set up and go on them? Or?
They're real methodical. The question was, how fast do you have to react? This is not like cobia fishing. A lot of times is a very quick reaction. The tarpon are just meandering along. You could see them in this one video. They're just kind of, they're just easing along. It's not like they're flying down the beach. So they're just kind of, if you want to go up the beach and get in front of a school of cobias and get a quarter of a mile up in front of them, you need to motor down the beach. With the tarpon, you can just kind of ease offshore, ease down there, not make a lot of noise, come back in. Because they're just kind of cruising along. They're not They're not in a hurry. What else? Should I go past? We don't have any more questions. Everybody's an expert. Yes.
But if you get out in front of the school of Tarpon and you're turning like that, and just let them out, say back to 50, 60 yards, or something, you can turn in the school, like keep pace with them, is that what?
I think it would work, but I don't think 50, 75 feet is enough. Maybe at 75 yards, yeah. If you had your bait from here to that back wall back there, you're probably not going to spook them. But if you have it from here to where the camera's set up there, that's not nearly far enough. You need to have it at least at that back wall.
And then just move along at about a knot.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of wait for them to bump into it.
Yep. And once if I was going to try, I've never really tried that method. Once the tarpon got to where I thought my bait was, I would probably start free spooling some line and not have that bait just be dragging too fast. I would start feeding some line and just let that bait do his thing. Yes, sir.
So, you think it would like mess up how the bait's moving around the water if you could do like a long slip cord in front of them so you could see where your bait was and line it up with the spool?
Probably not. It may very well work. Oh, the question was, could you use a slip cork so you could see the distance that your bait was and know that it was in the middle of the tarpon?
I mean, balloon is the same thing.
Balloon rig, same thing.
Easier to see.
Yep.
What is the time frame? I mean, I missed that from when they usually are here till they're gone.
So the question was, when's the time frame? Late May till mid-August, with the prime time being June 10th to July 30th. That's your kind of prime window. And this is not something, this is all sight fishing. So it's not like we're going to the fads. We don't have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go do this. I mean, you can't see them until the sun gets up and the glare gets off the water. You know, leisurely get up, go catch bait at 7, and the further you go from town, get down there around Topsail Hill, Grayton Beach, down that way, or run down past Fort Walton and fish from Fort Walton to Navarre, or past Navarre where there's not as many people up in the shallows. The further you get away from town, the better fishing is going to be. But you don't need to be to your fishing area before 8:30. Because at that time, before that time, there's going to be so much glare from the angle of the sun. When the sun's coming at this angle, the glare is terrible. But once prime tarpon time from a boat is about 9 to 3. So you don't have to get up really early to do this either. Well, definitely. Because I have plenty of videos here where the fish are well inside the sandbar. I mean,
5, 6 feet.
yeah. I know, I don't know anybody who's done it, but there are times down there in the National Seashore between Navarre and Pensacola that you could walk down the beach with a fly rod and fly fish for them off the beach. Because they're literally within 25, 30 feet of the beach.
But earlier you said fish on the outside of the second sandbar.
I see more fish out there, but they will definitely, especially if there's schools of bait fish, I've seen them chase them all the way up. The bait fish are jumping on the sand trying to get away.
Do you find that they tend to bite more if like the sea's calmer than if there's like a south wind and there's a lot of chop?
Question was, do they bite better when it's calm or when there's wind? If it's too rough, they're real hard to spot. So I don't think that they catch plenty at the pier when it's rough. But for the way that we're fishing for them, it typically needs to be a little calmer. And generally speaking, if we throw this year's weather out, because this year has been horrible since January 1st. Generally, May, June, and July are fairly docile months. And we get a lot of really pretty, slick, calm days. Now, it may breeze up in the afternoon, but most of the time, we have pretty nice weather. May, June, July, which is the bulk of tarpon season. But this year has been a total exception to that because I've fished maybe, I don't know, how many trips? Have I run 30 trips? Run 30 trips this year so far. I've canceled way more than I've ran. I probably fished 5 days when I said it was just, I could run anywhere I wanted to go as fast as I wanted to go and do whatever I wanted to do. The other days have all been just, I get home and I'm like, oh my God, that was hard. But,
So, quick question.
yep.
You go out, you're targeting these fish, and yeah, we understand it's fishing at the end of the day. But in their season, is it likely you're going to see a school? You're going to see half a dozen schools? Are you going to have days you're deer hunting and you sit all day and don't see nothing? And I assume there are days that way, but how popular are they?
So the question is, how many can you expect to see one when you go? I think in the primary 6 to 8 weeks, you should be seeing more than 100 a day, having 6 to as many as 18 bites, and catch 3 to 5. You know, if you catch 5, I think the average time frame to catch one's 45 minutes. So if you catch 5, that's a 6-hour day. So.
Your average casting distance to fish that you'd like to be at? I mean, you're saying that
From here to that boat, that dark colored one, that's a long cast.
with a live bait.
Yeah, that's a long cast. So that's the furthest I'm going to need to throw. Probably half that distance realistically. You know, Wayne Fisher and Pat Deneen, they're two of our big tarpon guys, and they regularly are coming in the shop talking about having 10, 12, 15 hookups per day. It's not uncommon for them to talk about that at all. Well, unless y'all have more questions, let's give some goodies away. So, spin around, pull me out a name.
Put a lid on first.
Yeah, just spin it up a little bit. There you go.
Okay.
Oh, Tate Abney, maybe? All right, you get me another one. Here you go. Sure. Chastity Burton, maybe? Here you go. Yeah. All right, pull me another one. Chris Palm?
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate it.
Now, we're giving away these little legendary Huggies. I'm going to give y'all a secret about these little Huggies. everybody thinks they have a bunch of these at home. And I shouldn't be telling y'all this, but at the shop, we sell them leader skeins, and they come 50 yards on a leader skein, and they're about, I'm just going to guess, $10.99. A quarter-pound spool of 60-pound Andy costs $10.99. It's got 150 yards on it. Take this little Huggy, you stick a quarter-pound spool in there. It makes the best leader dispenser you've ever had. You get 3 times as much leader for the same amount of money. So yes, these little things are something you really do want. John Walters. All right, Randy McLean. Oh, you are here. I didn't see you sneak in.
Thanks, Jim.
Yes, sir. All right, so hat and a shirt this time. Jim Kelly.
Thank you, sir.
Got a hat and a shirt left, and then one shirt. Boy, I'm going to say this wrong. Myra Groves? How bad did I do that? Myrna. Hey, at least we figured out who you were. Okay, we got one more legendary shirt to give away. Kevin Thompson. There he is. I thought you left. You're out of your chair.
Sorry, sir, it won't happen again.
Got to stay put. So anyway, everybody needs to get out and get us a tarpon. Make sure you send us. You can email some pictures to tim@halfhitch.com or tim@halfhitch.com for my fishing report. Everybody get out and get you some snappers. They're biting really good right now. You do have to put up with a little bit of weather, unfortunately. And remember, next month we'll be doing king mackerel fishing. But while we always normally do these on the first Tuesday of the month, next month will be the second Tuesday because it falls, it's going to be right there at the 4th. Everybody's got their family in town. You can't get here because of fireworks. Lulu's parking lot's full. So remember, next month it's the second Tuesday of the month, and we'll be covering king mackerel next month. And hopefully we'll have handouts and cards and everything that we're normally supposed to have because UPS didn't bring those today. But anyway, thanks everybody for coming. If you have any questions, come up and see me.